Okay.
Five, four, three, two, one. Boom. Hello, everyone. My guest today is Suryansh Rastogi. He is a cloud security architect with multiple certifications from Microsoft, Google, and Oracle. He today is a cloud sec specialist at Deloitte India. Suryansh, welcome to the Cyber Cafe.
Hey, Ishan. Thanks a lot for the great intro, man. And first of all, thanks everyone who's tuned in. And it's a great honor for me to be here on this your podcast. I saw Ishan's profile and he shared some very similar interests to that of mine. And I felt that this is going to be a great chat that we're going to have about security, everything security, be it cloud, be it non-cloud, and then anything else. Yeah. So really looking forward, right?
Fantastic. So Suryansh, if anybody were to
Yep.
ask you who is Suryansh, how would you introduce yourself to them today?
Yeah, this is yeah, okay. So hey guys, my name is Suryansh Rastogi and I am basically based out of Bangalore. I'm currently working at Deloitte as a cloud security specialist, and prior to this, I was working in HSBC in Pune. I have completed my graduation from BITS Pilani campus in Rajasthan, and prior to this, I all of my schooling is from Bangalore. So essentially, I would say that I am a typical cybersecurity nerd, but other than that, I do enjoy reading a lot. I enjoy playing outdoor games and online games and stuff, and I do enjoy playing chess. So yeah, so this is a brief overview about me.
So, how did you get involved in cloud security? What was your journey behind it?
Yeah, great. So basically, I spent quite a few years in my previous company working on cloud and cloud migrations. Currently, the focus of most of the big companies and small companies, so it doesn't matter big or small. At the end of the day, most of the companies, it is the migration to cloud and adoption of cloud technologies. At the end of the day, it's all about adopting the latest technology. Otherwise, you'll be left far behind. And cloud does offer host of benefits, plethora of benefits. So considering that, my own organization wanted a few cloud engineers to start migrating some stuff from the on-prem to the cloud, on-premises to the cloud. So all the Linux servers and everything had to be migrated to the cloud. All the services, all the applications needed to be migrated to the cloud, and that is when I got an opportunity to work on that, and I kind of picked it up. So basically, you read about this technology, you learn about this technology, and for me that was 2017 when I graduated, and I learned about what cloud really is. And coming from so I come from a non-computer science background, right? And for me to actually be exposed to this technology was really really game changing, because I could tell that this is going to be the future, from the point of adoption, from the point of finances, from the point of usability, from the point of security. So different aspects come into mind, right? And as
Right.
and when so I spent around 3.5 years on the other aspects of cloud, not security, not primarily security, right? Because when you start in something, you want to actually get the basics right. You want to understand how this technology is working, what are the different components, how can I move this. Then you fail at that, then you understand what I did wrong. Then you work with multiple architects, right? And what the job of an architect is, or what the job of a senior architect is, that they explain how distributed systems work. How are you going to move a distributed system from the on-prem to the cloud? How are each and every component of a microservice going to integrate to a bigger service that is going to be very very beneficial for the user, or going to provide great user experience. So considering that, all inculcating all of that, you get a lot of knowledge about the architecture, you get a lot of knowledge about the networking part, you get a lot of knowledge about the implementation, and you get a lot of knowledge about something which is very very critical nowadays, which we call in short as HADR, right? So HADR stands for, if any of the viewers who have tuned in do not know about it, HADR stands for high availability and disaster resistance, right? So the idea is that, building applications that are resilient in nature, right? So that is the whole idea. So considering all of those aspects and considering all of those features, then I got a chance to move into cloud security. And cloud security was something that we had all thought about. And so yeah, so then that is a chance, after working on the architecture or the working on the networking, after working on the inculcating HADR, high availability, disaster resistance, incorporating resilience, your applications so that they are functional and the latency is less and they are functional across the globe. If you have something like facebook.com running on your servers, you need to ensure that you have versions of the applications across different countries of across different domains where you have the application resilient, so that if one domain or if one data center goes down, it does not impact the other data centers, and usability and basically the user experience is maintained. So that is something that you need to be very aware of while working on these services and your own services. And often what happens, coming to the a little practical point of view, is often what happens is when you're a beginner in cloud, you might often just wonder that if I want to give the best experience, let me have so many servers, let me have so much, let me have a server in Mumbai, let me have a server in Bangalore, let me have a server in Delhi. But often from a company point of view, that is not feasible with respect to finances. So you need to do a lot of neat tricks to ensure, from the point of view of the company, that you have something that is very good for the users, but at the same time it's not really financially draining you down, because cloud bills and AWS, GCP, whatever, at the end of the day, public cloud bills can be very, very daunting if you don't know how to manage your resources. So that is something when you take cloud adoption to the next level, that comes into your mind. Anyways, so coming back to the point that we were talking about, so cloud security, that is when I got into cloud security, after working for multiple years on the migrations and everything. And cloud security, even though I had been dealing with it on a shorter scale, when you become when you tend to specialize in something, the idea is that you tend to look at it from a very microscopic point of view, right? The idea is
Right.
that each and every thing, each and every aspect of security needs to be looked into, needs to be managed. Be it networking, there are 7 layers of networking, and each and every layer of networking should be on your mind when you're thinking about security, when you're thinking about the architecture point, when you're thinking about you know application distributed systems, microservices, when you're thinking about the user data. So a lot of things are there, and all of these things need to be incorporated when you're thinking about security and when you're thinking about a security specialization. So I also got a chance to do my security specialization from Google. So I am a certified professional security engineer. And so while preparing for that certification, it gave me a lot of insight into how cloud security is managed, and especially by Google. And Google by far is the leader in this field, having worked on multiple cloud domains, as you said in the beginning also, right? AWS. I
Right.
have worked on AWS, I've worked on Microsoft Azure, on Oracle Cloud, and then currently working on Google Cloud. I have the most exposure in Google Cloud, but also by far, Google Cloud seemed to be the most secure one. So yeah, so this is how I kind of got into the cloud security domain, and currently I'm working with multiple clients on cloud security.
Hmm. How hot is the demand for cloud technology first, then cloud security? I mean, obviously, if there's demand for cloud, there
Yeah.
would be more demand for security. How high is the demand for cloud networks right now in India?
Cloud networks. So
The cloud
are you
tech.
talking about yeah, cloud tech? The demand for cloud tech is insane, to be very honest with you. The number of, and that I can get totally from see, you can look at it two ways, right? Obviously there is a usability point of view, and the financial incentive, the usability, the whole idea. For example, you build a new company, right? You build a new
Right.
company. Now you don't want to have the headache of managing basic infrastructure stuff, like you're buying your own servers, you're managing your own servers, you're managing your own security. All of these can be a lot. tedious work for a new company, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to focus on the product more and not on the, the household chores around it, right? And
Right.
not the basic stuff. So if someone comes to you and says that, on a very wholesale rate, we will manage all of this stuff for you, and we will give you best in class, security, we will give you best in class infrastructure, best in class architecture, we will give you an SLA and SLI, and we will give you very good parameters with respect to, resiliency, we will give you 99.9999% availability, that your application will not go down. That is our guarantee, otherwise we will pay you. So if someone comes to you and says these things, and when you look at them and you see that they are actually Google, or they are actually Amazon, or they are actually Microsoft, you know that these are the brands you can trust, right? So it becomes
Correct.
easy for you to make that decision to move into cloud and help them sort your cloud, you know help them sort your cloud infrastructure, so that you can focus on your own product, right? At the end of the day, it is all about the ease of, working and ensuring that you can focus more on the product, more on the, the operations and everything, right? And
Right.
even from jobs perspective and everything, I see, on LinkedIn and everything, I see a lot of roles, coming up for cloud engineers, for cloud developers, for cloud security. And that is definitely going to rise in the coming future, because I definitely see a big market in India for that.
Fantastic, man. I mean, yeah, I mean, I have my mom's friend again. She's a cloud engineer. She got involved when she was in college, and again, then she just starts talking about it. And I mean, I do you think people are using enough? Like people, how much people are using clouds right now? The cloud network in business right now.
uh, People are using it a lot, because for the current crop of startups, and especially right now you see, right, so many startups getting funded, so many new companies getting funded, you hear big numbers, you hear 250K, 500K, and so much, and so forth. A lot of, students from my own college, 2017 pass outs, 18 pass outs, 19 people who are still in college and probably will pass out in 2023, right? And they have startups which are worth $1 million at this point, right? So for all of these different, for all of these people, right, the idea is, again, as I said in the beginning, right, the idea is that you as an engineer, you want to focus, or you as a founder want to focus, because you have a very limited resources in the beginning, right? You just have 3 or 4 people
Right.
and you have your dream, right? So you don't really want to focus a lot on all of these, redundant stuff, like, how do I ensure scalability, how do I ensure, and all of these things are managed by the provider, right? Initially you have
So
a very
people want to
small
use
budget,
it to
you have your
scale
own
their
laptops,
business much
right? You
more
need
easily.
exactly, exactly, because see what happens is that, so when you build an architecture for an application, right, when you build systems, you don't initially, not everyone builds distributed systems, not everyone builds microservices. You start with a simple application, and then you say, this is my application, this is my code, and this is how it is going to work, user is going to send in query. But when it scales, it becomes difficult to handle it, it becomes very difficult to handle it. In such scenario, what happens is that either you have to rebuild your application from the ground up. Now earlier you had 5 people, now you have 300 people, so you have the ability to build it, but it takes a lot of time, to build something from the ground up, right? So cloud gives you that ability, right? The whole point is, I start my, simple business, right, or you start your simple business, cyberkilla.com, and you start it with, like 5 viewers initially, and then people grow and it goes, 50, and then 5,000, and then 5 million hits every day, right? So in such a scenario,
Right.
what happens is that by the click of a mouse, right, you can scale your application without having to worry at all about, how I'm going to manage the servers, how going to manage the security, how I'm going to manage the monitoring. Everything is managed by your cloud service provider, right? So
Right.
and they reduce the rates when the, you use their services, so rates are optimized, right? So at the end of the
Right.
day, all that headache is taken care by something as someone else, right? So, and
Mm-hmm.
leading class companies, right? So you can, rely
So you
on
can
them.
trust them.
So at the end of the day, exactly, you can trust them. And this is definitely going to go on the rise. More and more companies will are going to adopt the cloud technology. It is better for the environment, so because not everyone has to buy their own server, and then if it becomes redundant, then through horizontal scaling and vertical scaling is something that is so beautifully implemented on the cloud on the fly, right? That cannot be done on your own premises, right? And there are always going to be so when I say this, right, a lot of the viewers, they might listen to this and they might have this opinion that this is that maybe I'm biased towards the cloud, but that is not the case. I'm not biased towards the cloud, right? I have seen on-prem work, I have seen Linux machines work, I have seen basically VMware based systems and everything, and currently I work on the cloud, right? But something that is inevitable is the cloud adoption, because of the ease, because of the financial incentives, because of security, and because of the ultimate nature that is going to be the hybrid cloud, hybrid infrastructure that is going to come in. So you will definitely have to utilize these services to stay in the game. That's my
Awesome.
opinion.
So, what do you do as a cloud security specialist? Do you give suggestions or do you work? What's your day like as a cloud security specialist?
Okay, yeah, great question. So my work essentially requires me to work with different clients, with different multinational corporations, and help understand their infrastructure and then identify any vulnerabilities in their infrastructure, right? So there is a concept called threat modeling, right? So what threat modeling essentially means is that you look at someone's infrastructure and you try to identify if there are any gaps in the services that they are using, if there are any gaps in the open source software that they are using, if there are any gaps in the components or in the cloud service provider services that they are using, right? For a new company, let us say there is a new company and they want to use AWS, right, for all of their hosting, and all of their management, right? So in such a scenario, what happens is that they can use AWS, it is well and good, but going blindly because you think that AWS is the best, it is number one, and it's not about whether AWS or GCP, it is about that cloud is the best, right? Cloud or AWS is going to provide you some services. You need to ensure that those services are good for you with respect to security point of view, right? Security point of view, you might have for a bank, let us take a bank for example. Bank has very sensitive data, very confidential information, right? Account numbers, passwords, and more importantly, stuff like how much balance is there in your account, how much money are you getting in. A lot of people don't even want the government to know how much money is coming in their account, right? And you are trusting the bank, right? So bank has to maintain that trust, right? How do they do that? They need to ensure that if they're relying on a cloud, later the cloud gets hacked, everything is out, right? They need to ensure that the services that they are adopting in the cloud are safe and secure. There is no way that that particular service can be incorporated, or that service can be leveraged by a malicious user to get the data out. Data can be exfiltrated. So all of those things you need to ensure that those things are maintained as a company, as a business, right? So that is the whole idea behind how what we do. So we look at all the services that a company is using, right? For example, they build an
Right.
application, you build a banking application, right? Suppose, and you come to me and you say that what, I need your services. The whole idea is that I look at each and every component of your cloud service and I say that okay, this is not right, right? You're not using the identity and access management correctly, you're not using privileged access management correctly, right? You're not using the right open repositories, right? I see a lot of hard coded passwords in your code, some stuff like this, all the way to you're not using the clusters correctly, you're not using the Kubernetes correctly, right? So the idea is that I can identify vulnerabilities, I can tell you those vulnerabilities, and I can tell you how to fix them. Okay. So
Okay.
essentially we provide recommendations, we identify vulnerabilities, we provide recommendations, and we help in creation of more secure and scalable architecture at the end of
Right. So, if I were to
the day.
ask you, let's say if you're a computer hacker, how would and some a naive businessman is using AWS to build their product, how would you hack that system and take their data? What would the procedure look like?
Okay. If someone is using, if someone is using cloud, or it can be on-prem, right? Cloud at the end of the day is just another way to host your stuff, host your business, right? So at the end of the day, there are a lot of open vulnerabilities that can be extracted by a hacker, or any malicious user, right? It can be an internal malicious user. They can cause a lot of impact if they are within the company. If there is an external malicious user, also what happens in such a scenario is that they can use SQL injections. They can use different types of vulnerabilities. They can understand if the business is using if the business is using any open source software that have vulnerabilities. If you're using images, so what happens nowadays is basically for your workloads and everything, a lot of image based optimizations are used for using your workload. So I'm not sure how many of you guys are actually aware about how this
Image
process
based
works is.
optimization.
So so when I say image-based optimization, what happens specifically for workloads is that suppose you have virtual machines running, or you have Kubernetes clusters running. Now I'm going to go a little bit into the technical details. So what happens is, if you have these infrastructure running, what is a virtual machine? A virtual machine is a logical computer inside a computer. It's as simple as that, right?
It's like a fake
I can
computer
have a
inside a computer. That's it.
uh, no, I wouldn't call it a fake computer. So let me explain. Okay, so suppose you have a really good, powerful machine, right? You bought a system that has 32 gigs of RAM. It has the latest graphics card. It has the latest processor. Whatever i9 11th gen or whatever, right? And you don't really need those powerful specs, right? And suppose the business that you're running a banking application, right? Banking application is a small application. You just have 50 users, so you don't really need all those powerful specs. So what you do is you provide a logical containerization inside your computer, right? So suppose you
Right.
have a square, you divide it into four pieces, and you say, okay, business A can use 1/4 of my computing power. Business B can use 1/4 of my computing power. Business C, business D. You guys can use 1/4 of my power because I have a very good laptop, or
Hmm.
I have a very good machine. So I will logically separate this. Your data will be secure. The other business will not be able to see your data. You will not be able to see my data, so on and so forth. And this will be maintained, right? So this is what a virtual machine concept is in preliminary stage. So on the basis of that, you have further modifications like containerization, right? This is another very, very important thing that everyone in the tech community is currently using, right? So something like Kubernetes is something which everyone, all of you guys who are currently working on the DevOps side, or who are currently working on application side, would have definitely heard this word, right? This is revolutionized the containerization game, right? It is a container orchestration platform. So the point is that I don't want to make it unnecessarily complex. So the idea is that these services, services provide an extra layer of computing prowess, and extra layer of scalability to your architecture, right? So you want
Hmm.
a scalable architecture. So what happens is that suppose someone has a logical four different computers in one computer, right? You rent out your system, and you say that I'm giving it to business ABCD. Each and every business uses 25% of my computing power. Okay, now what they want to say is that, okay, you are good at this, we like your system, how about you buy more computers and you rent them out to us? So you buy 400 computers, and same thing you do for every computer, right? You give it 25% to A for computer one, then for computer two again you give 25% to A, so on and so forth, because their business is also rising, so their computing needs are rising on a daily basis. Okay, now what happens in such a scenario is that every time a new machine, a new small computer is created inside a computer, what happens is that, how will it be created? What are the rules that it define? What OS will it use? Every time a new computer is created inside your bigger computer, what OS will it use? How much memory will it have? Whether it will require a startup script every time it starts up, right? So stuff like that, right? So all of that information, right, it can be managed in two ways. Either a developer is sitting, and every time a new computer is required, he's manually creating that, inside the logical segregation that you have provided, right? So he is either manually creating it, or he is using something called images, right? Now what images are essentially a list of rules. Okay, a list of rules and a list of features that a computer will have every time it is created. So essentially you are automating the task, right? So you are providing an image, and the idea is that every time that image script is run, a new computer is created with the default specifications that you want, right? That's the whole idea.
Right.
So using that simple optimization, first of all, you're optimizing the task, you're automating something, and at the end of the day, what is happening is, because of this optimization, because of you are getting scalability, right? So every time, so let us say I'm running a business, right? And I have banking clients, right? So what happens in the night, I don't have a lot of clients, or asking for their balance at 4 a.m. I don't have a lot of people getting up in the night and asking for their transactions and balances and statements at 3 a.m. in the night, right? But that number will increase in the morning, right? So is it right for me to be running those machines and those systems during the night? I don't need to be running them right during the
No,
night, because I am
no,
losing
absolutely not.
unnecessarily. I'm losing money running all the systems, all the 5, 10 systems during the night and during the day. What I can do instead is I can run only 2 systems in the night, and I can run 10 systems during the day, because I have a lot of customers during the day, but I have very few customers during the night. So that is where cloud scalability helps you out, right? Automatically, you can set up constraints saying that when the number of users or when the CPU utilization goes beyond a certain point, increase the number of computers that I'm running, right? So automatically, using those images, the default rules that you have created, using those default rules, all the new computers are created when the demand is increasing. So that is the general idea behind scalability, and that is how we use images to automate this whole aspect of scalability in computing.
So again, we're
Okay.
hearing a lot about these
Yeah.
data breaches. Let's start with Domino's right now, the Domino's hack. So Domino's
Yeah.
India has become a major victim of a major data leak, as more than 18 crore orders data has been put up on a dark web for sale as a searchable database, allowing hackers to track and trace users from their verified location. Last month, Domino's India
Yep.
suffered a massive data breach wherein sensitive information such as phone numbers, names, and payment information, including credit cards, was compromised. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so this is something that I read about in how this happened, right? And if you actually look at the response from Domino's, the Domino's is very, the response is very lackluster. They have not really given the details, the technical details as to why this happened and what exactly happened. But yeah, one thing is definite, that this is not something new, right? This is not something new in the IT industry space, or in the industry space in general, right? Similar hacks have happened recently to all the different companies, right? Recent hack was for Big Basket, then there was a hack for Just Pay, then MobiKwik got hacked, and then Upstox, and then Air India, now Domino's, right? And so as you said, right, 18 crore users, and initially when the hack was reported, there were around 1 million users, whose data was reported to be on the dark web, and it was being sold, or it is just open for everyone to see. The hack did happen in February 2021, so yeah, so the one of
It
the
happened in
one of the
February
key.
and we found out about it now.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, right? So
I
what
mean, they
happens
kept it off
in
for a
these
very long
cases?
time.
No, yeah, so that's what I want to emphasize on, that's why I mentioned it, right? So what happens from an from a hacker's point of view? Let me talk about the hacker's point of view, right? So when if suppose I am a hacker and I get a chance to get into Domino systems, right? I don't get the access to all the data immediately, right? On the day one, I will never get access to all the data, all the relevant information, because as soon as I take a lot of actions, every activity of mine will be logged, right? So every
Right.
activity of mine is logged. If I take, let us say, 10 actions immediately, right, it might cause a spike, and some security engineer or some application owner, whatever, they might come to know about this, and they might come to know that, yeah, there is someone, and they might steal my account, right? I might lose all the progress that I have done, right? Because hacking is a tough business. Getting into someone's systems is a very tough business. You need to spend a lot of time trying to understand the vulnerabilities in their systems, right? So once you get
Right.
in, the idea is to spend a lot of time, spend at least 1 month, 1.5 months, to try to understand where the sensitive data is located, when does the the monitoring happen, happen, what kind of services they are using, what kind of resources they are using, how can you, erase your own footsteps when you go out of the system. A lot
Hmm.
of stuff is there, right? So considering all of that, the general idea in such scenarios is that the hack happens initially. So the hack happened in February, right? But
Right.
the data was sold, all that data was extracted slowly, and it was sold to a reseller. It was sold to a reseller, and that reseller is now selling it on the dark web. Okay. So the hackers did their job, they got the data, they negotiated with someone that, this is the data we have, because not all the hackers want to openly sell it. So they negotiated it with someone, and that person in the end is now selling it on the dark web, right? So that is the general idea behind, identification and, taking advantage of the security vulnerabilities in any system, right?
Right.
Worst part about this hack is that it is very similar. It is quoted to be very similar to the MobiQuick hack that happened recently, right? It is very similar to the MobiQuick hack, and that is the worst part, because that shows the overall, basically mindset about these companies, the Indian companies specifically, towards the security point of view, right? That even if something is happening and something, similar is happening in a company that, we know about, something like my MobiQuick, which is a big company, right? So something like that is happening, even then you are not able to focus a lot on, your own security, and try to identify those vulnerabilities which can be taken advantage of, right? So, as per the security researchers, I read an article. So, as per the security researchers, the hack happened due to a compromise in AWS key. So, their servers are hosted on AWS, and one of the AWS keys was compromised, right? Now, I think they were probably using a customer managed key, or an AWS managed key. That is not sure, but that I'm not sure of, because that information has not been divulged. However, what happens, I will just get into a little bit details about how keys are managed and how security is managed, how encryption is managed, through this. So what happens is that major cloud providers, be it AWS or, anyone else, the idea is that they have systems where the data is encrypted at rest and in motion by default, right? So if you are sending me some data, it is encrypted in the way, right? So no one
Hmm.
can attack, no one can misuse that data, because it will be encrypted, and only you will have the key to unencrypt it. That's the whole idea, right? So if
Right.
you're sending it to me, then I will have the key to unencrypt it. No one else will have the key to decrypt it.
Hmm.
Okay. So that is what a lot of people provide. Now what happens is that if that key is compromised, right? So that is the general idea. If that key is compromised, if I have the key and the key is compromised, then in such a scenario, someone else can create a similar scenario where they can misuse this data, or decrypt that data and then share it on, dark web or whatever. So this is what has happened here, right? And the technicalities of the hack, from what I've read, is that, it is essentially based on, maybe it is based on an SQL injection. Again, I'm not sure, it is a speculation, but if it is based on SQL injection, again, it is something very, very sad to think about, because, if you look at, so from a security point of view, we have, OWASP top 10. That is something, that is a top 10 list that is published by an organization, that tells you all the major, security vulnerabilities and hacks that were observed in the previous year, and on the basis of that, what security vulnerabilities were. Yeah, so I was essentially going through an article and looking at the technicalities of the hack, right? And I did see the mention of an SQL injection. Now, again, as the company has not divulged this information, we're not sure if that is the actual case. But if it is going to be a really sad fact that an SQL injection is being used to actually target the data records, right? So what an SQL injection is, for the people who are not aware, I'll just give, a brief overview. So SQL injection is essentially passing an SQL query, right, as part of, the web address that you're trying to pass to. So what are the servers, what are the configurations that the company is using. So using all that information, you behave like an internal server trying to reach the main database, right? You try to behave like an internal service. So what happens is that, once a server is there and once a database is there, so a server makes API calls to the database, and on the basis of that, database sees that SQL query that has been asked, and on the basis of that, the database sends back the information, right? This is how the information transmission happens between the server and the database. Now what happens is that you mimic a server when a hacker does that, and they send a call, API call, and there, instead of asking for a specific user account, right, that select star from where the mobile number is so and so, they pass a very open select star, right? So something like select star from where whatever table and schema is there, right? So forth and so on and so forth. So very open-ended query where you are simply asking for all the information that is present in the database. So if the database has 10 records, your idea is that I want all the 10 records. If the database has 10 million records, you want all the 10 million records, right? So that is the general idea behind passing an SQL query inside a command or inside a standard API call to get the data, to get all the information that you need, right? So this is a very very standard practice that a lot of hackers use, and it is not something new. It has been actually, a lot of you
It's
might
very
have heard it.
simple.
So it is
Like
a
I tried it
it's
on these
very
practice
simple.
websites. It's very simple. I
Exactly.
mean, in simple words, I think it's like an SQL glitch.
Exactly. So you're running. So it's something like you have a server and you have a database, and you're simply running an SQL query, telling this to say saying that just give me all the information, select star
Yeah.
from, right? So it is very similar to that, right? Okay. But yeah, for maybe for someone like Domino's, right, you will have to know a lot more details, when you're going to execute something like this. But that is not difficult for a hacker. The idea is that this is something that if you look at the OWASP top 10 list, right? So this is something that has been coming in the list for last 10 years at least. SQL injection for continuously for last 10 years, it is being appearing in top 10 vulnerabilities, right? So companies, when they are having infrastructure and architecture created, the idea is that at least look at the top 10 vulnerabilities and then understand if those vulnerabilities can be something exploited. So at least that you should avoid, right? So in such a scenario, something that is coming for last 10 years, and currently if you look at the latest OWASP top 10, you will see that it is the number one vulnerability that's being exploited as of now. So there are a lot of there are a lot of ways that you can mitigate it, and that needs to be incorporated in the system. And that is something that will probably I can talk about in a little broader sense, is how you can mitigate all of these things, right? So the idea is to implement security by design, right? So when you are actually building the systems, when you're actually writing the code, you need to ensure that security is the paramount, security is the focus, right? That is the whole idea,
Right.
so that you can create the systems, you can create the architectures where security is something that is being constantly looked at when you are writing the code from day one. So in such a scenario, what happens is that you can mitigate these disasters. And yeah, so that is something. And obviously there is a lot lack of accountability. Companies, they feel that they can get away with this in India. In other countries, companies might be sued for this. Companies might have to go to the court, and they might have to pay settlement claims. In India, this is not very prevalent. So companies don't really even acknowledge this, right? MovieQuick did not acknowledge the hack. They said that we did not have any hack. All of these are fake accounts that were put on the dark web, right? And similar thing, Domino's, even if they acknowledged it, they just said that yeah, only user phone numbers and email addresses were compromised. No payment system was compromised. No, that is
Even
something that
addresses were
cannot be.
compromised. I mean, people don't realize how dangerous this is. Now, basically, the amount
Exactly.
of data. I mean, if you're a hacker, I believe everybody is a hacker in some way or the other. It is so simple to have that mindset. I mean, if you have access to my address and my order details. So let's say it's my
Exactly.
father's birthday, and and in India we live in the same house for our entire lives, right? In other nations,
Or
they
yeah, of our entire life. Exactly.
yeah. So like we don't switch our houses that often. So basically the hacker knows that okay, this family lives over here, and now they know that okay, on this particular address, on so and so particular day, for the last 5 to 10 years, pizzas have been ordered in bulk. So something special
Yep.
must be happening. So they can figure out, okay, it could be somebody's birthday, could be an anniversary,
Yep.
could be a festival. So they can just figure out what's going on in your life just by looking at simple patterns. It's all about
Yep.
recognizing simple patterns, and then they can find out
Exactly.
so much information. So I hope people understand how critical this actually was.
But that's the problem, right? In India, people don't care about such stuff. So, for example, Domino's statement was that it is just phone numbers and emails, right? So it doesn't
Right.
matter to us, right? Credit card information is not wrong, but phone numbers and emails are not simple things, right? Phone numbers and emails can be misused, right? We receive all our OTPs on our phone numbers, and we receive a lot of OTPs on our emails. A lot of verification is there, associated to our UPI accounts
Hmm.
and everything. A lot of that information can be misused, and the whole idea is that that is something that you don't want in the hands of the wrong people.
Correct. Do you also think that there is something, see, like, again, I don't know if this is just an Indian thing, that, but we always want to save money no matter what. We want to spend as less as possible.
Exactly.
You know what we say, na ki
Exactly.
saste mein kaam nikal jana chahiye. We have glamorized this idea of jugaad,
Exactly.
and I think that's
Exactly.
screwing us in
Absolutely
from a
correct.
security
Absolutely correct.
perspective.
So yeah, so this is something that is very prevalent in the Indian ecosystem and specifically in the startup ecosystem, right?
Right.
Yeah, so as you can see, so you very rightly talked about this, right? I mean, the whole jugaad mindset is well and good, right? But the problem is that you cannot take security, or you cannot take all these important aspects into the jugaad mindset and say that I will spend very less on the on an engineer who can just focus on the security aspect, because I don't really want to focus, because that is not what the business wants, right? So in such a scenario, what happens is that all of these coding vulnerabilities and all of these architecture vulnerabilities come into the system, which are then hacked, and then the data is leaked, and then the companies refuse to take responsibility, because in India, at the end of the day, nothing is going to really happen, right? Because people don't take their data seriously, and neither do the companies, right? So the accountability is something that is missing. So that is something
100%.
that is good.
And
Yeah,
like we can't even like expect to have some laws and something come up, because that would be stupid. Like we cannot have
exactly.
something
No,
like,
so there are laws. There are laws in place, right? There is some section 43 CD, something like that. I was reading about it. But the problem is that Indian laws, maybe they're not as stringent as something like in the US. And so people, a class action lawsuit, right, for someone like Domino's, right? If as consumers, like let us say 5,000 people want to come together, and if they want to have a class action lawsuit against them, right? That is not something that is very feasible, right? From a monetary point of view and everything, right? So people don't really do it because the law is not that strong in that respect, right? So
right.
considering that, people don't do it. And if that would happen, right, if companies were forced to pay millions and millions of dollars to the customers, right, then maybe that accountability would come in, right? That yeah, that maybe we need to be responsible, maybe we need to take actions, because otherwise we might lose millions and millions of dollars. So again, so it is very simple in terms of accountability. They don't they don't even acknowledge, leave the whole idea of paying someone, right? Class action lawsuit, leave everything. They don't even tell the customers that what, your account details have been compromised in an hack, and please go and ensure that you can change your credit card details, right? You can change your debit card details, right? If you were to get a simple mail from Domino's saying that can you please change your details because these have been compromised, at least that would save you from the future of financial or cyber attack that would happen to you, right? So they won't even tell you that, right? So in such a scenario, and I'm not trying to take any one company here, I'm not trying to corner any one company here, but this is the general mindset that we see in the company, in the ecosystem, and that is something that maybe needs to be looked into, and maybe needs to be acknowledged and worked on.
Hmm. I really like the way you said it, man. I totally agree with
Yep,
you on that.
yep,
Okay, so now just if let's talk about students right now.
yep.
What was it like for you as a student? What experiences did you have while learning cloud security? Would you like to share something with students?
Absolutely, absolutely. So security in itself is a very niche domain in India specifically as of now, and even in the industry, it is very niche as of now, right? Not a lot of people are there, not a lot of people are working in it, and as of now, not a lot of companies, as we just discussed, right? Not a lot of companies are emphasizing on it, right? So, but definitely down the line, it is going to be a very big market. So, for students, I would like to say that this is something that they need to specifically incorporate in their own learning, right? So when you are learning, to be a Python developer, right, or learning to be a Java developer or whatever it is, right, at the end of the day, if you're learning from your second year or you're from your first year or in your school in 11th standard, the idea is that try to look at and try to explore what are the security implementations that you can have in your own code, right? How can you make your coding best practices, like what are the best practices from security point of view, right? Like for example, if you're creating an application, try to ensure that it does not have any hard coded passwords in it, right? If you're trying to build something right in Python, try to ensure that you're not using any deprecated libraries, you're not using any basically libraries that might have been compromised or not, that do not have the latest security features, right? So considering these and a lot of other lots and lots of other aspects, right? If you're creating a web framework, then what are the best securities in a web framework, in a web application? So considering that, how do you manage DDoS attacks? How do you manage other types of attacks that might come in, right? What are the services that you can use? So these are the things that people need to learn from the ground up, from the basic, so when you learn these things from the basic point of view, you become much better developers, and more than that, you become, your code is secure, right? Your code is secure. It might take a little bit of time in the beginning, but the secure code you know gives you the advantage of ensuring that your code is not going to be compromised, and it is not going to be exploited by someone. It's not going to be exploited by hackers that can result in complete that can result in a business shutting down, right? We have had stories where due to hackers, there are businesses, billion-dollar businesses that have gone down, right? Because critical data was taken. If you're working in a bank, right, if bank, the whole idea of a bank is that trust, right? That we trust SBI, right? We trust some good bank, right? The whole idea is that we trust the bank. But what if SBI data were to leak? If SBI data were to leak, we would no longer be able to trust them. And if we don't trust them, then we would not be able to use that bank. We would not want, we would move all our accounts to a different bank, and then the bank would die, the business would die, right? A business that
Right.
employs crores and crores of people would die. So that is the implication of one single developer can cause that level of impact, that crores and crores of people will lose their jobs. India's economy will be unstable if something would happen to SBI, right? So that's the whole point. So you have to ensure that something like this can be incorporated in a very ground level for all the students if they get into this. It is, and trust me, it is a very rewarding career. It is an exceptional, it gives you the thrill when you identify a vulnerability in the system, and when you talk to the managers, and when you talk to the team who has built it, and they acknowledge it that yeah, this is a threat that we overlooked. This is something that we did not identify, and we should have looked at it, and we should have identified it, right? So that is something that truly is very rewarding. And trust me, even from financial perspective, and we don't have a lot of security engineers now. There is a point coming in for that.
Do you think security engineers are underpriced right now? So, Suryash, what's your opinion on cybersecurity people being underpriced right now? I mean, I've seen that full stack developers get paid 12 lakhs per annum. They have a package of 12 lakhs. And here people don't even get like 6 to 7 lakhs of package, even after clearing big certification like the OSCP. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Absolutely agree with you there, Ishan. There is a definite, disparity when it comes to the pay scales of the developers and of the cybersecurity professionals and whatnot. Uh, yeah. So one thing that we need to understand, again, we talked about the mindset, right, and the ecosystem mindset, and again, we need to understand one thing, right? So for a business when you start a business, the idea is that you, if you're starting a web based business or an Android based business or whatever, the idea is that you want developers, right? You want developers, you want good developers that can, get the job done of two different developers, who can get the job done of three different developers. They can, work hard and they can provide the best quality code that does not need a lot of testing and everything. All right, but cybersecurity in Indian ecosystem is much of an afterthought as of now, right? People think about it at very late, after something happens, and then they go to the developer and is like, "How did this happen?" Right? And the developer is like, "Dude, I'm a developer, right? You can't expect me to look at everything." There is a specific thing that cybersecurity professionals do. Threat modeling is something that not every developer can do. They don't have the time. They just don't have the time. You don't have the resources, right? This is something that needs to be looked into, that needs to be implemented, right? So that is something that is definitely missing, and because of that, that pay disparity, that demand disparity, that role disparity is definitely there, and that needs to be looked into. But that being said, I believe that down the line, this is definitely going to change. However, demand of developer or demand of a, is always going to be more, because first you need to build something to secure it. At the end of the day, that is true for you, that is true for me, right? If I build a business, I would want developers first who build it, and then we will think about securing it. Okay, maybe you can have good developers that secure it while they build it, but that is not often the case. So the whole idea is that maybe you have developers, that secure it while they build it. If that is not the case, then you go for the developers who build it and security comes later. But at the end of the day, for bigger companies, right, for bigger organizations that have a lot of systems that are already running in place, they actually want people, who are able to build, who are able to secure it. I see a lot of different positions coming in for cyber security specialist, for security specialist and everything, and that will definitely increase down the line. I'm very very optimistic about that. That is definitely going to increase the demand for security professionals. But at the end of the day, I would suggest that don't be specific, or don't be focused on just one trade. Security is just a part of the bigger ecosystem. You should be able to architect, you should be able to code, you should be able to develop. That provides you a lot of insight from security point of view, and then on the basis of that, yeah, on the basis of that, I believe that security is something that definitely will build careers, will provide careers, will definitely provide good packages and good compensations and everything. But again, in the Indian ecosystem, my advice is to be jack of a lot of trades, because just being master of one is something that is not very practical in the Indian ecosystem.
Right. So, is there any tips that you would or any advice you would like to give to any student who's just right now in college, currently learning about cybersecurity? What would you tell them?
Yeah, so I would definitely tell them to focus on the current trends, on focus on what is happening in the world, be it the Domino's hack or be it the MobiQuick hack or other hacks. Try to get into the bottom of this. Try to think from a hacker's point of view, and then from a security professional's point of view. A lot of students think from a hacker's point of view, and they're like, "Huh, I would have done this, I would have done that, and then I would have the data, access to that." Right? That is well and good, but what if you are a security professional in the company, right? How can you mitigate these hacks? How can you avoid these hacks? You need to think from that point of view. So how you can anticipate that someone will try to do this in my system, and then anticipating that and then blocking that is another very rewarding experience, right? So understanding that and pre-planning that is something that a lot of people might have to look into, learn about that, focus about that, and and trust me, it's a lot of learning there, and a lot of skills to be built there, right? So that is one thing that is definitely I'm going to emphasize on. Another thing is that focus a little bit on the architecture side, focus a little bit on the distributed systems, try to understand how systems are built, how multifaceted applications like Facebook or Google or Gmail are running, how they are running is very very important, right? What are the systems they are using? System design, right? System design is something also I would like you to focus on, because that is something that helps you understand how systems are actually built and how they actually run, and what you can do to exploit them, or you can do to safeguard them. So for security, by itself there is not a lot of content out there, right? The content is limited, the courses are limited, right? So I would not say that, go and do some course for cyber security and become an ethical hacker or this and that. That is something that, maybe it will not be rewarding for you. And there is a lot of fraud in the market, for that. That, you can just learn and take some course and learn and then become a hacker, and then you will get lakhs and lakhs of rupees. That is not how it works in the market. So don't do that. Focus a lot on the basics. Basics are very important with respect to security. Simple stuff. We often don't focus on the simple stuff. Simple stuff like, identity and access management, providing the right roles to the right people and everything. They play a bigger impact. Encryption of data and everything. A lot of these things. And definitely, third tip would be definitely, get into different environments. Definitely look into cloud security is on the boom. Definitely try to learn about clouds. Definitely try to learn about the cloud security, what can be done. And that is something that will definitely help you if possible. If you feel that, you're good enough for certifications, maybe try a certification exam. I can understand for the young people in colleges and everything, certifications might be a little bit expensive as of now. You don't really want to spend 10K or 15K on a certification. You don't even know if you will need it. And I can understand it. You don't need to do it if that is the financial constraint is there. Trust me, you don't need to do it. But skill is something that you need to build, and if you have the skill, you have really good opportunities. And companies, when they come to college campuses for hiring, definitely look at people who are above the standard crop of people who have just done DSA and who have just done basic stuff, and they're sitting for placement. If you know what is currently in demand in the market, right? If you know what is, so actually developers don't come and implement DSA a lot. People actually have to implement security, right? If you can talk about cloud in your interview, if you can cloud talk about security in your interview, right, with a little bit of confidence, a little level of confidence, that shows that you know what you're talking about, right? You're able to explain it to people. You're able to explain the current infrastructure, what is going wrong, what we are doing, what we need to do. So if you can talk about these things, right, it will definitely create a big impact on the interviewer. And especially if I'm the one taking your interview, I would definitely want to hire you, because I know that this is what we actually want in the market, right? We don't want a person who can solve linked lists and everything. At the end of the day, what I would want is someone who knows what security is, what security is going to be, and can implement that security in their own infrastructure when they're trying to develop something, right? So that is something that I would want to advise to want to share my advice to all the college graduates right now, that try to implement these, try to learn about these, and definitely wishing you all the best in your future endeavors.
That was a very wonderful session I had with you today. Thank you, Suryansh.
Yeah,
Thank
Ishan,
you very
same
much
here.
for
Yeah.
being on my show. It really means a lot to me.
Yep.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Ishan. It was great talking to you, and the discussion was very productive, I believe.
It
And
was
yeah, man, fantastic opportunity. Thank you so much.
great. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.